A convention that we use was the large urban city, which is used commonly in most crime films because a lot of action can take place in the city rather than the countryside. Also, it's a lot easier for location recce since we live in London, so we had quick and easy access to the areas that gave a good effect. In professional films, they tend to shoot with an establishing shot from the top of a building or panning down from the top of a building. When we looked into doing the genre of crime, we found out from our research that a detective tends to be white and known as good. When we say good, we mean sort of strong, always fights for the cause, and has a positive reaction all the time. So this is why we looked into The Departed more, where Mark Wahlberg plays a detective. He is shown as very powerful as he leads a team speech, and is shown with low angles, high angles, and a range of different camera shots. A low angle on TV can be used to show power, as well as in movies. We have used it in ours to show our antagonist is powerful. In professional films, they do it a lot. For instance, in Reservoir Dogs, they show three protagonists as powerful by using the low angle. A typical convention that everyone has of a detective is that there will be a good white cop. However, in some cases, it's not true. However, we decided to follow the stereotype and we have used a white detective. One film we looked into when looking at the detective character is Sherlock Holmes. Over time, Sherlock Holmes has been known as a key detective, one of the most famous white detectives as well. Of course, we have other people such as Poirot and Frost. However, we decided to use Sherlock Holmes as he is more of a typical detective, as he displays every skill. In our first ever pitch, we had planned to go with hoodies, trainers, jeans, and caps for each of our characters. However, when we got our feedback from teachers, we were told that it was too mainstream. This is why we decided to use a suit. The suit had a story behind it as it showed him turning into a man. As well as this, is a very untypical convention of a gangster. Our inspiration was from Kidulthood. We used Kidulthood because it was people ranged around ours. They all looked late teens, which is why we decided to keep some of the costume the same as theirs. However, we decided to keep the antagonist as a suit. Typically, people expect gang members to be older, aged between 30, 40, and 50. However, we decided to go with a younger audience as we went with late teens. We thought this would be interesting because it would aim at our primary audience, which was teenagers in London. However, when people think of teenagers in London, they don't think of large guns and action. This is why our film could throw people off. However, when looking at Snatch, it's much more complicated narrative compared to this to action. Of course, there is still the action, however, each character has a story behind them. As we see from the opening, each character has a unique skill, such as some can look into the price of diamonds, and some are more of the gunmen and fighters. In our opening, we decided to challenge the typical convention of having a detective that was capable of doing everything. Instead, we had a disabled detective who was deaf. In films such as Seven, you see the two detectives who are all capable of running and doing everyday stuff. We decided to show ours as disabled through the use of sound, such as the high-pitched ringing noise, the muffled music played as well. As well, we used mise-en-scène such as props. We used the earpiece that showed him as deaf, as we couldn't afford a hearing aid, so we used a headphone that looked along the lines of a hearing aid. Since we live in London, we decided to use many ethnicities for our opening, such as white, black, and Asian. When looking at professional films, they tend to use just one race. So the film we looked at was Heat. Heat uses one race, which is white. Most white people in films are shown positively. However, the fact that we have white, black, and Asian, we had to vary. So we showed all three characters equally as powerful. For example, they all sat on the wall in the exact same position. They were all most likely center frame, other than our main antagonist, who was known as Chaza, who we followed throughout